Hey, what's up? My name's Austin, but I go by Off-Center Glass down here. What's up? I'm gonna roll a time lapse at the same time behind me. And listen to some music. Oh, and I'm gonna try to make like 20 beats for you on like five or so manuals. These little spokes covered in a beat release that allows it to not stick to the like an Instagram reel where there's like one song and it doesn't go all the way through the video. measure. I mean, I put notches on here, but I can't tell if that's got the full notch on it. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right? Oh, that's right.
We're going to start, the chains are going to be made of these smaller rods here. This is about 4 millimeters. And then we're going to use these, I think 5 or 6 millimeter rods to basically be your tool, like handle for the class. Okay, so I'm going to start with heating up both ends of the smaller 4 millimeter and the, what I'm going to call the handle. And so you're going to come into the flame. A little bit about this flame too, really quickly. It's a mixture of propane and oxygen. That's how it gets this nice little blue tint, is from the oxygen that we add to it. Up here is going to be the cooler part of the flame. Down here is going to be the hotter part of the flame. So we're going to want to stick to the middle part. It is all really hot though, so make sure that you're not putting your hands near it, or again, just be aware of this flame. Okay, so again, I'm gonna come in and just heat up the glass. It's really important too, when you're working with glass, similar to how you saw in the hot shot, is that we consistently keep it rolling. You can do consistent full turns like this, or you can kind of turn it back and forth like this. Glass is really sensitive to gravity, obviously, because it's turning into this liquid state, and if you keep it sitting in one place, it's gonna fall and kind of go towards the ground. And we want to do what's called a gather, and just gather a nice little ball on top. We don't want to let that gather fall sideways. We want everything to be nice and even. So as I'm heating up the ends of this rod, the ends of these rods, I am slowly just turning them side to side to make sure that they stay on top. And now I'm starting to get this really nice orange glow. You see? I want that nice orange glow before I kind of glue them and merge them into one. So I've already lost it. The tip of this rod is still really hot, so again, do not touch these parts. But I'm going to come in again and get that really nice orange glow. And once it looks good enough, I'm going to stick it together. And I bring it out of the flame and just kind of marry the two. Eventually we're going to be removing this handle from the middle part, so I'm not really concerned about making sure it's a permanent closure or a permanent stick. I really just want to make sure it's strong enough to hold the glass that it will act as a handle for me in the meantime. And that happens pretty quickly. As long as you got that nice orange glow and glue them together, keep it in the flame for a second, you should be good to go. And so now I'm going to bring it out of I brought out the flame, let it cool off a little bit, and I'm going to grab my other handle and do the same thing on the other side. So again, I'm coming in, and I'm rotating, and heating up the ends of these handles, or the ends of these rods. And now I have that nice orange glow, so I'm going to kiss the two together, let move this around, I want to wait until it's fully stiff before I start working with it, otherwise it's going to mess me up. It only takes a few seconds to do that, so just hold it kind of even, and this is what you'll kind of end up with. And again, we're only going to be working with this middle part. These two bigger pieces are just acting as our handles for me. So now I'm going to come in and do what's called a fan heat, and slowly just move this back and forth to heat up the middle part of this rod. Because the goal here is I'm going to come up and bend it up to start creating my chain. And for this as well, I want to rotate as I'm doing it. I'm doing full turns this time, but again, you could go back and forth if you'd like. And just slowly heating it up. And I'm starting to feel it move a little bit, so I'm going to switch my hands to be this, because I'm going to pull up and my movement is going to change. So I switch my hands, continue to fan, and I can feel the glass starting to move a little bit. As soon as I get any sort of glow, I don't want it to be that bright orange, because that will essentially cut the glass in half. I want it to just have a slight red tint. And as soon as I see that slight red tint, which I'm seeing right now, I'm going to come up, cool, and move up. And I'm going to sit here for a second and let that stiffen up, let it cool down. I don't, but you can. Some people do that when they're doing like punties, which I'll show you, to kind of cool it off, but it's just preference. Okay, so now you can kind of see we have the start of our first chain link. We got that nice U shape. And so now I'm going to come in and create what's called a punty. I believe you guys saw that in the hot shop as well. It's essentially a cold seal that you use as a temporary seal to hold your glass. So instead of these permanent handles like I created up here, I'm going to merge these two together as cold as possible, but still warm enough to be sticky and hold the glass while I'm working with it. But eventually I'm going to knock this off, and there should only be a tiny punchy mark when I do that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to keep this out of the flame for a second and just heat up the punchy, because it's not really the shape that I want it. I want a nice ball shape, kind of like a Q-tip at the top. Again, I'm heating up, I'm doing what's called a gather. And I'm only really heating the tip of the rod. I don't really want a really large gather here. And honestly, that's good enough for me. Again, this is going to be a temporary seal, so you don't need it to be super durable. And I'm going to come in and kind of fan the bottom of my chain. If I were to stick it in the flame and let it heat up fully, it's going to start bending down, and I'm going to completely lose the shape I created. So I only want to fan it enough to get it warm, so that when these two pieces touch, this part doesn't crack. If you touch hot glass to cold glass, the cold glass is going to crack. So you want to make sure it's warm enough to sustain the punty, but not hot enough to move and lose your shape. So again, I'm going to come in and heat up this punty and fan my chain. And the punty, you want this nice little kind of slightly red, slightly orange glow, nothing too bright, before you come in and kiss it on. And you can see the punty seal looks very different than the seals from the handles. You can see the seam. It doesn't look very durable, or you can tell that these are two different pieces of glass. Whereas the handles are a little bit stronger. So that's kind of the goal that you're looking for. So next I'm going to take off these handles up here. And by that, I'm just going to use this torch as sort of a knife. I like to say that the torch is another tool similar to your little metal tools down here, and it acts as a knife that will cut the glass for you. So I'm going to spot heat the part of the glass that I want to take off, which is this big blob where we connected the handles earlier. And this you don't really need to rotate. You can kind of switch it back and forth, but essentially you really just want this one part of the glass to be the cut. And you hold it in the flame until it gets a really nice bright orange. And it's really, really important that you don't tug the glass super quickly away from each other. See how I just kind of held it there, I slightly pulled it apart, and then kind of let the flame and glass do its thing, and it'll eventually cut it. As it starts heating up and getting really bright, you can slowly start to pull them away from each other even more, but you never want to yank it, because that will create what's called like this fiberglass, and it's just really, really thin, like things of glass, and it just can get in your bloodstream. It's really dangerous, it can poke you, so you want to make sure that you're being really gentle when you put the glass on each other. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And again, just waiting for that really bright orange glow, slowly cool, and then let the glass cut. Alright. So now we have this open chain link, and I'm going to work on closing this. So I'm going to work on the kind of longer part, but I'm going to kind of work with both of them also, but I'll start with the longer part and try to close it up. So I'm going to come in and start heating up the part that I want to bend. So a little bit further from the top, and kind of fan it similarly to how we did when we bent the initial chain link. Get a little nice glow, and this is when your graphite paddles are going to come in nicely. You could also use your tweezers for this, but I like to use the graphite paddles just because there's no risk of it sticking to the glass. Get a nice heat, and just kind of gently, gently, gently push down. So it's starting to bend. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Fan it, get a nice heat on that whole end of the rod, and bend over. And just keep doing this until eventually the top pieces are touching each other. Okay. So, they started to touch each other. So now I'm going to come in and heat up this connection. And the glass is going to get hot and gooey and goopy and basically merge together. So I'm going to come in, and you can also continue to just use gravity now to pull them closer to each other. And just kind of heat up all of this top part of the chain. And notice I'm fanning it too. The fanning motion helps move the glass into itself. Just continue to do that. And now it's connected. You will also have these little round graphites. I don't really know what you would call it. Not a paddle, but just these little round graphite tools. If you don't like the shape of it, you can come in and kind of fix it up and make it a little bit more even. For time's sake, I'm just going to kind of let it be what it is. It's also important that you make sure you completely seal this. So when I look at this now, I don't see a seam whatsoever. This looks like it was initially all the same piece of glass. You don't see that seam that you saw with the Plenty, or that you can see with the Plenty. Like, the seam is completely. And that's really important with Goro, that you just make sure anything that is going to be permanent is fully sealed off. Otherwise, you risk it breaking later on. Okay, so now I'm going to take off this little chain from the Plenty. I'm going to hold it over this graphite paddle and give it a nice little tap, and it comes right out. So, pick it up with my tweezers and see if I see a punching mark. There is, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but there's a tiny little mark from where I just took off that glass. So I'm just going to come in and flame polish it. That's essentially just like heating up the very, very tip where that mark is, just enough to kind of get rid of any sharp edges that might be there. But you have to be really careful in this process. One, not to drop the beautiful chain that you just made. Two, not to ruin the shape, not to cut where you're heating up. If you heat it up too much, it'll cut the glass in half. All those things are important while you flame polish. Okay, so now I'm just going to make one more of these, and then a third one to connect the two, and that'll be our chain. And of course, you can keep adding on. But yeah, does anyone have any questions so far? Yeah. waste a lot of glass, honestly. Now I can reuse these handles, and I use all the glass that was here for the chain. When you do it like this, it's kind of hard to explain or like help you visualize the glass that you're wasting, but you end up wasting all these little bits of glass because you have to cut pieces off, and it's not as reusable. So I find this process just like more resourceful, especially with glass. And so you want to make sure you're using all of it. Exactly. Consistency is really important and also really hard to get with glass, and this is one way to control that. Great point. Okay, I'm gonna go on. I'm not gonna be as detailed with the instruction, but please let me know if you have any questions. So again, I come in.
Oh, what's that? Oops. Okay, that was okay.
Marry them together.
Oh, was a happy accident.
Pull them out and let it cool off and stiffen up. Continue to rotate as well while the cooling process is happening. Okay. Grab the other handle.
Dude, this is hard.
Marry the two. I got that nice orange glow. Kind of let them merge for a second on the flame and then bring it out to cool down. Rotate. With my hands, and now I'm going to start fanning. It's starting to bend, so I'm going to bring it out. Make that chain. Let it cool down. Grab my punty. I don't really want to use this side as a punty, right? So I'm going to set this down. I also don't really want to flip it because I don't want to risk this being too hot and cold. So I'm just going to cut this piece of glass off. Everyone at your station, you will all have a little cup of water. If you have a piece of glass that you like want to ditch or something is getting too out of control, you can just put it in the water and leave it there. You'll hear a crackling sound, but it's not going to hurt you or explode or anything. It just is better to have hot glass that you want to discard contained, because if you leave it on the table, you could risk burning yourself. Okay, so I'm going to cut this little piece of glass off. And again, I'm not going to pull. I'm just going to let the torch act as a knife. And now I have a nice rounded end. Super satisfying. Okay, take this back up. Do this right. Okay, come in and fan the chain. Make the punchy. That punchy was a little off center. I want to redo that.
Off center. Off center.
And see, that chain just tried to like, the bottom of the chain was a little too hot, so you saw that handle started slipping. Just make sure you maintain that shape and try to not let it slip as best as possible. So again, we're going to come in, take these handles off, now again, fan the ends to bend the glass. The thing about borosilicate is that it takes so long sometimes, and you just gotta have a lot of patience with it. Glass is something